Less than that?
It should. I mean, 30 minutes. I gotta call it too, so it won't be too much longer than that. Um, but we're live.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool. So
I,
this is what are you about to say? Go ahead.
I was
Go
about
ahead.
to say happy Monday, OBZ.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday indeed, everybody. This is Odell Bizzell, and I am here with the great Linnita Hosten, who is a pescatarian, not an Episcopalian, although she loved God, but she also loved to fish, apparently. She's from the
Love the fish.
DMV, from Maryland. They have a lot of great seafood there, so I know that she is well fed. She is Googleable, people. So if you don't know Linnita now, I'm not going to give you an official introduction or anything like that, but definitely check her out online, Linnita Hosten. Linnita, I'm excited that we're having this conversation.
Finally. Finally. I remember the day that we met. It's good to be connected to the people whom you share the same circle with. So this is good.
Yeah, for sure. When I met Linnita way back when the world was open, back in 2019, at a conference, met her, and I'd heard about her a little bit, a little bit in the speaking world. You usually hear about, different people. I didn't really know a lot about her, but she was super friendly, super cool. And one thing and one reason why I wanted to have Linnita, why I wanted to interview her, is because Linnita is a black woman. I don't know if y'all can see that. I don't know if you're okay with that, but she's a black woman. And somebody often that I run into asked me a question, and they said, "Hey Odell, do you know I'm looking for a woman to present? Do you know any black women?" And this was for a college event. This was some years ago, and I had one of those moments, Linnita, where I was like, uh, maybe I thought of like a couple, a few. And then if somebody were to ask me, "Hey, we're looking for a speaker," any speaker, the first ones that popped up in my mind were men. And so I didn't know if it was like just because I shut myself off or whatever. And so anyway, I wanted to get you on to talk because you're a young and upcoming award-winning speaker. You won the super new best speaker of the year in the universe. Best new speaker. Yeah, but talk about that. You did win an award, and I got to interview a mentor, a friend of mine, Delatoro McNeil II, who was at that event. So talk
Yeah.
about how you were able to get in that circle, and we'll talk about your speaking journey.
Oh my gosh. The award that Odell is talking about is Youth Speaker of the Year at SpeakerCon 2019. And to be honest, when they called my name, all of you who know, whether you have a platform, you're on a platform, you never think your work is comparable to what other people are doing. And to win the award was definitely eye opening. One, that people are watching what you're doing. No task or no journey, no gigs are too small. All of your impact and how you show up online counts. The award was measured by the visibility of your work online. So you actually being physically in front of audiences, and how you were showing up online, whether it be professionally or conversationally, that have you. But yeah, it was a proud moment. 2019 was a really big year for me. There were some other awards that came out of that year as well, including Education Trailblazer. And I'm just happy that the work that I've been doing since 2013 is finally being recognized. So it feels good. It feels good.
That's good. Yeah. And what's great about, that as we get into your speaking journey, and the only reason why I bring up, that you're a black woman is because it's important. We know representation is important, and I know a lot of people that I'm connected to, like sometimes they look at the stuff that I have done and the stuff that I'm doing, and they're like, I don't know if I can do that. And I mean, I'm like, of course you can do it, but sometimes it helps seeing somebody like them, right? Like somebody
Yes.
that actually did it and is
Yes.
doing it. So how did you get into this world, this speaking world in the first place? And when did all that start?
It's so interesting that you bring up the gender gap in our world per se, because as I've grown from becoming a speaker, and I'll tell you that story shortly, there were only men who really catapulted me in the business. All of them were men. Every time I went next level, it was a man who was like, "No, sis, come on," and taking me with them. Those people were Maurice Kinsey, Justin Jones Fosho, Dale Bellamy. Those people were like, even down to Willie Jolly. So those are kind of like some of the people who were my anchor and my push. Um, but I started speaking from my 9 to 5. Right out of college, I was running a college preparation campaign where I was responsible for creating presentations, workshops for back to school nights, college and career fairs, anything where parents and teachers were in the space of college prep. So I had done graduation ceremonies, you name it, all kinds of stuff. Back to school night, I don't know if I mentioned that. So I was doing their material that I created. So basically, they gave me statistics and they said, we need this to grab the hearts and minds of parents. And so I did that for 3 years. And in my second year, I was doing my presentation, my normal thing. And it was crazy because most of my reps came from middle school engagements. So these were sixth, seventh, and eighth graders, which is the hardest audience because they
So
don't cheer
hard.
you on just because. So that's where I got my practice from, and the ability to be energetic and using creative metaphors and examples. But long story short, I was doing my normal presentation, and a guy after my presentation came up to me and he said, "You're good. Like, have you thought about doing your own, like having your own message?" And I was like, at the time I was 21. And I was like, I haven't thought about that. And he was like, "Well, I'd like to do lunch with you." Now I know that I'm not too bad on the eyes. So initially my thought was, I ain't trying to help nobody. But he followed up, and the next week we had lunch, and he came with a notebook. In the notebook, he had a plan. He said, "I want to do a student leadership conference in the DMV. These are the contacts that I already have. And I'm thinking if we can get you some professional headshots, some business cards, we can do it together." So a girl got duo. And I'm like, so first of all, pause for a second. No one ever validated. This is the first time someone's validating this innate ability that I apparently have that I didn't realize, and I was really young. So initially, I was like, "That's a bit much." And he was like, "What's your reservation? Is it money? Do you need money for the headshots?" I said, "I do need money for that." He was like, "I'll go half." I was like, "Okay." He was like, "You need a website?" I said, "I do." He said, "I can't go half on that, but the help that you need in providing the content, I'll help you create it." It was really hard to tell the man no. So I was like, "I don't know, man. I'm young. Will people really listen to me?" And he was like, "That's fear. Just try it." So he was my first pusher, the first person who ever validated me, took me under his wing. I mean, my first set of headshots were $400. And this is what I mean about coming out the gate professional, and showing up in the marketplace as if you've already been there. He was the first person who told me, "Don't look like you knew. Go the extra mile from the beginning." And so the website, everything looked very professional from the beginning because of his mentorship. And so I started in middle schools. Then I moved over to high schools. It took a while for my community and people following me to see me as serious, like serious enough to pay. So I probably did that for about 4 years, unpaid, unpaid. In between that, I had some personal struggles and some journeys. I struggled with depression. But it was in writing my second book. Hey, Mike, it was in writing my second book, The College Strategy, which my mentor helped me write. I wrote it out. I was writing through my depression, and I transitioned from K through 12 to the college market. And through that book, I was picked up by Campus Speak, which is a college speakers agency, and that agency has allowed me to travel national and speak in front of audiences that do not look like me. And then from there, it just went crazy. So, it's interesting, when people say, "How do you get started?" Someone pushed me. I know Brian knows always says from the Black Speakers Network, he always says, you either pushed into the industry, you didn't have no choice, you had to make men, so you slam into the industry. So I was pushed. Someone saw a talent or skill innate in me and was like, "No, go get yours." And I did it.
I love that. That's amazing. And I want to mention this first. We had a question. What kind of camera are you using? It's so clear.
So crazy thing, I have been focusing on my aesthetics because I don't know if anybody's doing virtual engagements, how you show up in the marketplace. My coach tells me this all the time. How you show up every time you go live matters. So I just upgraded my phone. This is the 11, and I have a ring light behind it.
Ooh.
The 11 is not even the
Ooh.
newest one, by the way. It's just the newest one you can get without making a down payment.
Wait a minute. What's the? It's not the newest one. We all
No,
off
it's like
subject. This is
three more.
horrible.
But yeah, that's it. And a ring light. Yep. But it's really the camera. It's your camera quality. I know some people like to do it from their laptop, but sometimes the camera has a your phone has a
Alana,
better
how come you
camera.
didn't ask what kind of camera I'm using? That's messed up, Alana.
What
Yeah,
kind of camera are you using?
I don't know. Anyway, let's go to the let's go to the next
I
question.
love it.
But the thought that I had, Lanita, all seriousness, and I know I kind of laughed a little bit when you mentioned it, but it's a real concern if you're a young woman or if you're a woman, period, and a guy approaches you, um, that's gonna be a lot of times, sometimes the first thought, right?
Mm,
Especially depending on how they come at you. And I want to ask you this, just to be frank. We're friends, so I can ask you this.
yes, you
But
can.
have you ever had, you had your first mentor that kind of pushed you, that he was legit, he was 100 about it, like he was straight up. But have you had like some people come at you kind of sideways, kind of be on trying to be on the same tip?
Prayerfully, I have not.
Okay, good.
Thankfully, I have not. Um, and I think there may have been opportunities where it could have led to that, but I'm really clear. I'm really clear about the messages that I give to people. And I think, unfortunately, as women in business, we do have to be that way. We have to be very assertive there's no gray between what I'm communicating with you. The other challenge that I found, Odell, is that most of the men who were catapulting me were married and are seriously dating. And so there was a time where one of the guys who I was working with decided to end our friendship because the spouse thought that the relationship was inappropriate. So there's another barrier there. I totally get her apprehension, even though that was not the case. We just were really passionate about our line of work, and I happened to be woman, and he happened to be man. But I've run into that per se, yes, and those things hurt. Those hurt.
Got it. For sure. And the reason why I asked that is because, and my wife, she says a lot of things about me. But she, like, and I think a lot of guys that I know in my experience, that's not our first thought. Like if somebody, whoever approaches us is giving us
Mm,
some insight or something like that. If it is a woman, they're saying, "Oh, you did a great job," or maybe you should do this, maybe you should do this. It's not necessary. And again, this is my experience. I'm sure there's some guys that think differently, but it's just I don't think she want me. Like I don't think that. Like I just don't. That's not where my mind goes. But I just wanted to
yeah,
bring that out because if you're a woman watching this or listening to this or what have you, and you have that, I like what Lanita said about being clear, and being, that's important because there are some
yeah,
guys that do take friendliness for other stuff, or do
yeah,
take, oh, we're in this business together, let's do this, and people
yeah,
misinterpret things. So we don't want to have that go either way. But if you're
yeah.
having any trepidation towards it because of that, definitely want to point that out. Now I want to get to, this is something I think is really important. You're represented by an agency, and I am too. And our agencies may or may not be Tupac and Biggie. I don't know. Like, I don't know how all that stuff goes, but
Me either, and that ain't
right,
my business.
rival. I don't know. I don't know if that's even a thing. But um, when you're represented by agency, I want you to clarify this for the people watching. The agency does not make or break you, right?
Facts. In fact, it is a dual partnership. Like, um, you could be represented and not get business. In fact, some people find that challenge. You really have to have a zeal, a creative initiative, You got to have your own identity and brand for it to really be a powerful partnership. It's supposed to be a partnership. So no, you signing on does not um, assume or automatically give you a head start. What it does do is give you, I believe, visibility in markets that you perhaps would not be able to get to so readily. Um, and perhaps it may take you out of your local market and make you national. But in terms of it being sustaining, that's on you. And no agency can provide sustainability for you. You are responsible for generating leads. You're responsible for still showing up on social media. All of that ties into you're responsible for still creating products and services that would be an additional component to you showing up and speaking. So it's still on you. It's a partnership, really.
Yeah, and that's huge. Having that partnership because, people, and I know people have come up to you, Linnita, and they're like, "Ooh, you with an agency, so that means that you big time and that you got all of this." And it's like, yeah, but it's a partnership, and agencies usually only partner with speakers, with acts, with entertainers that they know they can help because they get paid too. Like whenever you go out to speak, campus speak, they get a little bit of it. Whenever,
Yep.
any of our mutual friends that are represented by agencies, whenever they go out and speak, their agencies get a little bit of it. And so it's just like you said, you're able to get into different spaces, different opportunities are available to
Yeah.
you because you're more visible. And so moving on with that, when you're going to speak, when you speak about your topics that you speak about, did you find that you had to add more, or like a lot of our speaker friends, did you have to pull back from the stuff that you were offering?
Listen, I wasn't offering enough. That's
Hmm.
one thing that I have learned is that my content was very shallow. Being partnered with the agency and then seeing other keynote speakers how they were creating their content, it was deep, not wide. So I had wide content, meaning I would have all of these examples. So now I have one example and we're diving deep. And I feel like a lot of the structuring from my keynote has come from the support of that network of others whom are keynote speakers and whom are in that agency. So yes, transitioning my content to that being valuable, that's really what made it valuable. Because going deep requires research. It requires you to just be more than a motivator or an inspirational speaker. You really have to provide some not just industry knowledge, but your own take on the existing research and make it fun and practical. And I think that's what I love about the line of work that we do. Anybody can do it, but those who do it effectively, those are the ones who we love, right? Those are our great storytellers, our people who can take a statistic and turn it into a 4 quadrant, break it down, help you identify yourself in one of those quadrants and have a desire to change. Like that's a powerful speaker. So yeah, I got better at facilitating and creating my content. Um, Probably after I onboarded with the agency, and it was actually, I don't. Those of you whom are speakers and you're going to conferences to generate leads, the first conference I invested in, I spent $2,000 and got no leads. When I say 2K, I mean my flight, my hotel, because I was there for multiple days, and I was angered.
Name
So I
drop,
went
name
back.
drop. What conference was that, Linnita? Name drop.
ASLV.
Got it.
ASLV. And it was this big thing. I had 3 sessions, right? But here's the takeaway that I learned after I went to that conference, and I was really pumped to be there. That's where it's not in meet you at AFLV. I met you at CCWL. But when I got home and I was thinking about it, I made some phone calls and I'm like, I haven't gotten any leads. I just spent 2K. I'm 2K in the red. And then that one, it was brought to my attention. They said, well, what did you talk about in your session and how did you end? And that person helped me walk through. He said, you're too wide. You need to be deep. And your call to action at the end, it needs to be strengthened. So there was a lot of molding that happened too as I was learning.
That's good. And one thing about those conferences, Lanita, and you pointed out that investment, right? Being able to invest in yourself, and one thing that a one of my mentors told me is that you have to be willing to put, well, most people that are successful are willing to put more into their own self-knowledge and growth than others. And so you being as young as you were, starting in your early 20s, when did it occur to you that I need to make this type of investment, like the $2,000 investment or more into this? Like, when did that occur to you?
When I started talking to people who were doing what I wanted to do. Run me through how you got to talk me through what led you to, like, I was never afraid to ask. I think some of us, we shy away, or our pride um allows us to kind of play bashful when it comes to asking people questions. Remember, I told you I'm real clear, no gray, I'm black or white. Slide in the DM. Hey, I noticed that you were how? Tell me how. And I was willing to pay. That's another difference. I never picked anybody's brain. I was always willing to pay. Hey, let me know the cost. Send me the invoice. And those people were willing to help. Um, so yeah, I was confident enough to ask, but I was also selfless in knowing that I valued the person's time and not wanting it for free. Not wanting it for free.
Got it. That's huge. And not wanting it for free. I think that point is huge because we want, as human beings, we want the easier way, if there is one. We would like the shortcut,
Yeah.
but there really is no shortcut other than what you just talked about, like talking to people that have already done it, talking to people that are doing it. And that's the thing that different mentors of mine I've interviewed, they say they brag about how much they invest in different
Mm.
things like that. And our mutual friend Daryl Bellamy, that's one thing that he and I are always talking about. Like, man, I spent 10 grand on this and I spent this on
And
that.
oh, Beasley, let me tell you this. I have also learned in talking to men and women that men are very commonly willing to do that. They understand the value, they'll do it. They may be a little frightful, but they'll do it. Women, on the other hand, very more risk adverse. And so I find that in order to really show up in some of these places, I did have to pay. And there weren't a lot of Black women, to be quite frank. And I think that's why. There's a risk that you did run. I knew I was running a risk by throwing away basically 10K at the start of the year, right? So that's the start of the year in the red. Who does that? But I knew I had to be visible. That was part of the visibility plan. But yeah, I've noticed that there's a distinction between the men and the women whom are investing in that level.
It's huge. And I want to refer to a comment here that Alexandria posted. She said she feels like it's an extra step for women to even learn to have a call to action. Like, you have to learn how to make the ask. And y'all are women. I love y'all. Y'all, there's so much that y'all can do to help the world. And I want to touch on that point again, Alexandria. Like, learn how to make the ask. When you got that advice from AFLV, when you talk to that person, what was that tweak, and what do you do now when you're giving presentations, like, those workshops or keynotes? Like, what do you do now for that call to action?
So we call it seeding. And basically, you don't wait until the end to do your call to action. That's one thing. You're seeding it throughout your presentation in a very passive is not the best way, but the best word, but discreetly, I guess. So you may
Subliminal.
say subliminal, yes. So you may say, while you're doing your presentation, and this is one of the things this is me giving you the example. This is one of the things I love when I talk to students in my coaching program with women. They always light up when we get to this topic. We're going to get there in a second. So that's seeding that you do something other than what you're doing in front of them, or that's seeding that they can hire you in a different capacity. So let's say you run through it, you run through your content, and you may say, raise your hand if this resonated with you. And they may say yes. And they say, well, we only have an hour today. I would love to continue to pour into you. If you'd like to stay in connection with me, join my community. You can do a QR code on the screen. But this is like before you end, because you still have them. Like right after you give your message, they are in their hot zone. They're like, I want more. If you're good, if you're good, they like, I want more. Like, I like how this makes me feel. I feel good. I don't want it to end. So you would give them that ability to connect. And then at the end, you can also say it again. I enjoyed you all today. I would love to continue this relationship. You can join my community again. You can put it back up. If you like to stay connected on social media, blase, blase. One of the things that I did at a conference in Houston, and this was my best engagement 2019. It was at an honor society national conference in Houston, and I had them tweet their takeaways. And I had went to the mall. The conference was attached to the mall. This is how I'm intentional about how I love on my audience. I went to the mall. I spent $98 on prizes. So I brought these vodka infused gummy bears. I brought fuzzy warm socks. I brought a nice tie for a guy, a Bart Simpson t-shirt, and I put it all into a branded bag. And I said, I have a lot of gifts in here. I brought gift cards from the food place, the eatery, Smoothie King, Burger King. And I said, I want to hear, what were your takeaways from today? Like, what did you learn? What was convicted in your heart? But I don't want you to tell me. I want you to tweet them. And I acknowledged their tweets. And when they came up, I said, come and get your prize. And I let them take out what it was. And so people were tweeting. Again, that's them engaging in your social community. Some of those are testimonials. That's being intentional.
That's big. I am going to appropriate that and and use it as my own.
Please.
Because yeah, that's huge in getting them to engage. I remember one engagement that I did, and that's related to what you're talking about. Was at Ball State University, and I told them, it was like 300 students. I said, "Hey y'all, let's trend today." I said, y'all want to be a part of something trending? I was like, let's trend today. And I said, whenever I drop something that you like, just go ahead and drop them bars. Like I was like, drop them bars and tweet it. And by the end of the night, and I said, hey y'all, look, we're trending. And so it's like I had them like a part of the whole thing, because they were just tweeting away. And so I love that. That's huge. And another thing I want to talk to you about before we get out of here is marketing. Because Linnita, my thing is as a speaker, we are speakers. We stand and deliver. We mentor. We do all that stuff. But we're a lot more than that. We have a lot more to offer. We are a profit center. That's a phrase that I always like to use. We're a profit center. So we can do a whole lot more, but just learning how to market helps us in different things. What have you found is the greatest marketing tool that you've used to get engagements?
This is where I spend all my money. Okay, outside of my marketing budget, get you a person who can do your bookkeeping legitly. I just wanted to drop that there. Marketing is where I spent all my money in 2019. That's when I got the most engagement, and that's when I had the most revenue. I think the best market for a professional speaker is professional videography. Like, don't discount when you have a gig, no matter how big or small. Every time I was traveling last year, almost every time, I went ahead and I hired somebody. If I didn't know, I went on Thumbtack. I looked at their videos. I kind of studied their material, looked at their camera qualities, what they were doing, their editing abilities, because I have a little bit of video background. But yes, I had a photographer, a professional photographer or a videographer with me, and sometimes both, every time. And I was pushing out content. I was really intentional about that. When you have a year where you have consistent bookings, one way to maintain your visibility online is to get the video professionally recorded. You can do 2 cameras on one. My preference is always 2. And have someone take that raw footage, have someone bite them down in chunk size and put captions on them. I had a 19-year-old do it. He was a beast. He just took my professional video content and he made it do what it do. Most of that is on Instagram. But it was expensive, I'll be quite frank. But that is what increased my number of followers online, and it brought in some community engagements. People need to see you in front of people. And here's my thing I hate about videos. I don't want to see you. I want to see the people responding to what you're doing with them. Okay, so yeah, you who rah rah rah. I need to see, like, are they resonating? Are they sitting up forward? Are they clapping? Are they jumping? Are they yelling? Like, are they crying? You have to be able to show the multi-dimension of your abilities beyond you standing powerfully behind the podium, beyond you rocking your suit. Like, part of your credibility is how your audience is responding and what they say after. So you can post their feedback if they reach out to you. I think I want us to shift from being on display to displaying our impact. We're on display as
Mm.
a brand. We're focused on our outfit. We look nice. We're walking up to the gig. This is me getting the mic. But show like you hugging that student because you touch them in a way they wanted to hug. That's what you prompt your videographers and your photographers to capture. I always give my videographers and my photographers, this is what I want. I want me walking onto stage. I want students' reactions, laughing, crying, jumping, raising their hand. I want captions. I want clips of me and them. So don't allow your focus to just be me, hi. It needs to be me and them because that's what meeting planners want to see. They want to see, are you going to come in and rock the house? So always ask for that. Give your media people direction. And then you post that. You come up with a strategy on social media on how you're going to give them clips. And the other thing is, short content is king. 30 seconds here. Make people yearn, hungry for your stuff. Don't give them the whole 2 minutes. Give them something to come back for. Break it down. And then be humble. Like, there's a lot of this elitist, pompous, like, um, behavior in our community. And if you be honest, none of us, we ain't arrived. We ain't arrived. Okay. So be okay with being okay with where you are. One of the things that I'm really intentional about when I first started speaking, Odell, and I know we have to wrap up, I would buy a new outfit for every engagement. I felt like I had to be like, oh, I gotta be. I ain't doing that no more. After 2018, it was recycle, rinse and repeat. So because I was over how people were perceiving me, my credibility had been established. And now as long as I'm appropriate for the event, it doesn't matter. And so allow the focus to be on your audience. I spent more time thinking about how I'm going to push them to a call to action, how I'm going to connect with them, how am I going to engage with them different from the last time. That's where my attention is. It is not on what I'm wearing. I got to get my nails. Now I wear press-ons. So my attention is nurturing them. When am I going to give them away? When I leave? How long am I going to stay? So yes, put the focus back on the people that we're serving.
Man, I love that. That's so many nuggets right there, giving them directions. And I'll add this. We had a question I want to get to in the comments, but I add this. You can use what Linnita's talking about, not just to promote your speaking engagements for the future, but to promote anything you're coming out with. Because if you have something, whether it's a new book, and you have crowds of people, getting hyped because of what you're doing, or you're posted up with different people, or you have a testimonial saying, "Oh my gosh, Linnita was incredible," and you have all of that, you can sell a book, you can sell music, you can sell a course, you can sell anything using that stuff. And if it's bite sized, like Linnita said, then you can also use that to for more social proof. So that's the really, really big thing. And got a lot of great comments here. I want to get to this one, Alexandria. How do you nurture your client versus the audience?
Ooh, that's good.
Like college
Okay.
students versus program coordinators. Go ahead,
Yeah.
talk about that.
Oh my God. See, I like talking about stuff like this. Okay, so and I got this from Daryl. Daryl's really big on client engagement. So starting in 2019, every client that I've made contact with, whether they brought me in or not, I send them Valentine's Day card, Christmas cards, and I always send a thank you gift after my event. And I don't just send like, so I'm studying them while I'm there. So if it's a man, I study his attire. I'm like, okay, he wears pink. So I go to a store nearby the engagement because I'm all over the place. So I know one time I got a client. He was very dapper when I met him. So I went to Nordstrom's Rack, got him crazy socks, a matching tie, and a sample cologne. And I stuffed in some treats like Sour Patch gummy bears. One of the things he told me that he liked was hot Cheetos while we were there. I grabbed those. I put it in a nice box, with some confetti. I put a thank you card, my business card. Thank you for selecting me. You could have chose anybody and you chose me. I don't give them my books, my workbook. I don't give them anything of me because what you got of me was while I was there and how I thought of you in that package. So I don't give them branded things. Another one of the gifts I got, one of the ladies that brought me in, she was pregnant at the time and she was about to go on maternity leave. I got her a Massage Envy gift card, and I put treats in there, chocolates. So yeah, I spend money on my clients. Another good example. I recently got a really good partnership with a national organization. This is community level, and we were supposed to have a conference prior to the pandemic hitting, and she canceled. Obviously, I didn't get that money, but I know that she works with college prep and college awareness. So I sent her. I said, "Hey, I know we weren't able to do our virtual event, but I'd like to send a few gifts your way." So I sent her. In this instance, I did send her my book, my workbook. I have a poster for students to map out their goals. And in the note, I put, "Thank you for even considering me prior to the pandemic. It's a privilege to have worked with you, even in its small capacity. These are just some of the gifts that I like to share with you that perhaps you can share with your students." Just that. So that package alone was probably about $60. And I give it away. And who called me? I have done 2 virtual events with her. I have 2 more to do. So I made more than that $60 back. We're almost up to 1,500, and this is for a community group, and that's pretty good. So nurturing, how do I nurture my clients? If we made contact, meaning somehow they got into my email list and maybe they reached out, they didn't show up for the call because I had some do that this year. They reach out, "Hey, I'm interested." I jump on the line, they don't show. I call them, they don't answer. I send a voicemail, they don't call back. But when they fill out the form, they send me their address. So at the end of the year, I send them that Christmas card. "Thank you for even considering me." So even if I don't make a sale, don't have a physical relationship with them, I'm still intentional about how I communicate with them. So yes, Alexander
For
said, "Lay it all
sure.
thick."
That's what you gotta do. That's what you have
Yeah,
to do because most people won't book you. Period. If there are 1,000 opportunities, you're not gonna get 1,000, right?
yeah,
But you still have an opportunity to serve. And, Linnita being in this long enough, some of that's going to come back around. Maybe that person's going to remember you and they move jobs and they're like, "Oh, yeah, she got me the Massage Envy certificate and all that stuff." So that's huge. You just gave a TED talk on customer service for real.
yeah,
I'm gonna have to step my
yeah.
game up. No wonder you getting all the speeches. I'm gonna have to step my game up. Good grief. Like that's really good. But before we go, any parting words you want to tell the people? Any way they can get in contact with you going forward?
I would say wherever you are, do it afraid. At every point where I was ready to go, we're not ready. At every point when it was necessary for me to go next level, I was not ready. I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think people would value the work that I was doing, but I did it anyway at every level. And so I encourage you, regardless of what level you see yourself in, don't play small. Show up big. Show up big until you believe it in the inside. I believe it now, but I did not believe it when I got started. I didn't believe it when I transitioned to the college market. It took some time for me to believe it, but I was doing it as if I believe. What they say, faith without works is dead. Do the legwork and be okay with the, not the criticism, but the feedback that you get and make some changes. I made a lot of changes and they turned out to be in my favor. Whatever fix, they say chew it up, eat the meat, swallow the bones. But make those changes. Don't be so prideful in what you're doing that you can't be humble enough to learn from others. So those are the 2 things that I would say. Do it afraid, do it before you're ready, and be responsive to the feedback that you're receiving. If you'd like to stay connected, I am on all things at Linnita Hosten. Um, my name is there. It's on Instagram. My most active platforms are Facebook because that's where my demographic is. I'm learning that. And then I haven't really been active on Instagram, but you can see some of my work there. You can catch me online at linnitahosten.com. And I'll share this. One of the things I have learned, and I think this pandemic is showing us, is that it's important to have multi layers and functions of your business. I know we talk about that, but the actual practice of that is really difficult because you're one person. But I'm really fortunate to be launching my first student coaching program called the Dream Career Academy. We launched in July, and it is virtual career coaching for high achieving students. And so that information can be found at thedreamcareeracademy.com.
Love it, Linnita. Great nuggets. Glad we finally got to connect. I'm sure the next time you're gonna charge me, so I'm glad that I got you while
So
I can
silly.
still do it. But thank you all. You know how we do. We'll see y'all at the top, not from the top. Make sure you run it back, listen to it again, and take some notes and use them to better your life and and better your impact. We'll see you on the next one.